The high beams pierced through the dawn fog as three patrol cars boxed in the rusted black semi-truck from both flanks and the rear. Gravel crunched under tires. Sirens faded into radio crackle. One officer stepped out slowly, hand resting on his holster. Another leveled his flashlight at the driver's side window, voice calm but sharp, barking orders. No answer. The engine idled. Then the rear doors of the trailer hissed, a sound no one expected. The cop spun, weapon raised. But the latch wasn't opening, it was bending outward, buckling under some internal pressure. Another noise followed. Low, rhythmic, heavy boots coming closer, and then the metal gave. Out walked a man, dusty combat boots, relaxed hands, unbothered stride. He wore a worn-out brown jacket with flecks of mud near the hem, graying stubble, eyes calm. And behind him stepped a towering figure in a gray hoodie, face partially hidden, stance like a statue but breath trained, as if waiting for permission to move. Jason Statham didn't flinch as red and blue lights stung his eyes. He kept walking until he stood face to face with the youngest cop on the scene. That cop's hand trembled. He hadn't seen the seal patch stitched into the other man's sleeve. But this wasn't the beginning. Because 32 minutes earlier this truck hadn't been a target. It was a ghost on wheels, rolling through a sleepy industrial stretch south of Laredo, Texas. No plates, no signature on the highway logs. A truck nobody wanted to notice, until someone did. At 5:12 a.m., the semi rolled past the third camera checkpoint just a few seconds too slow. The system flagged it, not for speeding, but for hesitation. A dispatcher at the sheriff's office logged the anomaly. 2 squad cars were already en route to that area for an unrelated DUI stop. They were redirected. At 5:17, Officer Darrell Winslow, 10 years in the force, known for his short fuse and longer memory, spotted the rig from a distance. No brake lights, no tag, no logo, just a long, black, soulless mass crawling through dawn. Winslow radioed it in. He'd seen trucks like this before, usually full of problems. Inside the cab, the driver was calm. A Latino man in his early 40s, burned scar down his right jawline, no visible weapon, but both hands stayed on the wheel. He hadn't spoken since they passed the border warehouse. In the rear compartment, sealed and reinforced with interior braces, Jason Statham sat silently on a bolted-down bench, a duffel bag at his feet, one strap clutched loosely in his hand. He hadn't blinked in 2 minutes. Across from him was the man everyone called Kip. 6'2", navy gray hoodie, black cargo pants, quiet, military posture even when seated, SEAL insignia tattooed just under his wrist. He wasn't here for comfort. He was here to protect something or someone, and nobody on the outside had clearance to ask why. The truck hit a pothole. Kip barely moved, but Jason Statham's right hand pressed lightly against the wall, steadying the duffel as if its contents mattered more than his own balance. Outside, 3 patrol cars surrounded the vehicle. Inside, not a word had been said. Until Jason Statham finally leaned forward, voice like gravel soaked in calm. "They're not here for the cargo," he said without looking up. "They're here for us." Kip's gaze flicked up, confirming what they both already knew. The truck slowed. No radio call came from inside. The driver simply nodded once and tapped the dash twice, a signal. The brake lights flared. The air hissed as pressure released from the lines. At the front, Winslow shouted for the driver to exit. No compliance. His hand shifted to his belt, too fast, too aggressive. The other officers took that as their cue. Guns were drawn. But before any door opened, Jason Statham stood up inside the trailer. Not rushed, not tense, just ready. He zipped the duffel slowly, stood upright, and nodded once at Kip. "You're still not supposed to speak until I say, right?" Jason Statham asked, voice low. Kip gave the smallest smirk. Then came the latch. The rear of the trailer groaned once, twice, then popped open just enough for Jason Statham to slide his fingers in and pull. What the cops saw was one man, but the energy that followed was wrong. The kind of wrong that makes experienced men hold their breath. Jason Statham stepped out into the early light, not fast, not defiant, just controlled. The SEAL followed, hood low. But let's rewind further, because this wasn't about the truck or the SEAL. It was about why Jason Statham was on board in the first place. 6 hours earlier, deep in a mechanic's yard north of Corpus Christi, Jason Statham had just finished replacing a leaking coolant line in a rental van. His boots were muddy. His shirt was damp. But he wasn't on anyone's radar until an unmarked phone in his bag buzzed. One vibration, then silence. He stared at it. That number only rang once in 5 years. He wiped his hands and answered. No voice, just coordinates. That was enough. The bag was already packed. He slid it into the truck, told no one where he was going, and by the time anyone would ask, he'd already vanished, because someone needed extracting, and only Jason Statham and Kip had the skills to get him through a dead-zone corridor without any agency noticing. Which brings us back to the roadside standoff. At 5:31 a.m., tension hung like electricity. The youngest officer, barely in his 20s, shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't ready for this, and Jason Statham saw it. He didn't move faster. He moved slower. Every inch of his approach calculated to disarm without threatening. But something changed when he passed the trailer's edge. A fourth unit, late to the stop, pulled up hard from the right, kicking dust toward the semi's cabin. A bearded cop, flanked with tack vest and mirrored glasses, exited yelling commands. Too loud, too fast. His K9 handler stepped out behind him. The German shepherd barked, already on edge. Jason Statham didn't break stride, but the seal behind him shifted. One half step forward. Just enough for Jason Statham to raise a single hand and stop him. It was the only movement he'd made since stepping off the truck. And that's where we pause. Because what happens next shouldn't have happened at all. A hush had fallen over the entire highway. The kind of quiet you only get when trained men start realizing they made a mistake. Jason Statham and Reyes stood beside the truck, hands relaxed by their sides. No sudden moves, no threats, but no fear either. Sheriff Buckley squinted. His boots crunched over gravel as he stepped forward. He knew Reyes, had seen him once in a debrief decades ago standing next to a CIA attaché in Yemen. Reyes had that presence. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people shut up. But Jason Statham, that was a different problem. Buckley didn't recognize him immediately, but the way the younger officers backed up when he looked their way told him everything. Someone had trained them to fear a man like that. "I'm gonna need both of you to get on the ground," Buckley finally barked, voice steady but carrying doubt. Jason Statham didn't flinch. Instead, he turned to Reyes, gave a subtle nod, and slowly crouched to set the Pelican case down. Reyes stepped forward once, unzipping the top of his jacket. No weapons. Just layers of dog tags, black credentials, and a stitched badge, federal clearance covered in dust and heat. Buckley's lips parted slightly. That was real, too real to fake. Jason Statham's voice was low and graveled when it came. "You want to open that case, Sheriff? Go ahead. Just make sure your badge can handle what's inside." Buckley motioned to one of his deputies. The younger cop crept forward, knelt, and clicked the case open. Inside, vials of medical-grade stimulants, encrypted hard drives, and two small burner radios. But that wasn't what made the deputy stop breathing. There, at the bottom, a crumpled photo. It was taken years ago. A desert outpost, Reyes on one side, and on the other, a much younger Jason Statham, sunburnt, bleeding, holding the handle of a modified sledgehammer. Standing between them, a general. Not just any general, one who disappeared from public view years ago after a rumored betrayal deep inside a blacksite project. The deputy looked up at Buckley. "Sir, you might want to see this." But Buckley wasn't looking at the photo. His eyes were locked on Jason Statham, not for the first time now, but with recognition. He'd seen his face in a classified file marked Red Level Clearance. Not because Jason was a criminal, but because he'd been cleared to operate without oversight. Meanwhile, back at the rear end of the police line, Officer Wynn had started stepping backward. Something about this entire encounter had gone sideways, and he knew it. He glanced at the other cruiser, where a rookie had a drone feed running on a tablet. Wynn tapped the screen. "Rewind that." Just a minute. The footage showed Jason Statham and Reyes exiting the diner earlier that day. Then, from an alley behind the lot, two men in plain black jackets with government plates had trailed them. One had a scar along the side of his head. Neither had returned on camera. "Who are those guys?" Wynn asked. The rookie had no answer. Back on the asphalt, Reyes finally spoke. "You're out of your depth, Sheriff," he said. "We're not trafficking. We're not fugitives. We're not even on this side of the line by choice." Jason Statham added quietly, "You pulled over the wrong truck, and now you've put everyone here in the blast radius of something you don't understand." That was the first time anyone noticed the sound. A low hum, barely audible at first, but growing. Buckley's radio chirped. "Sheriff, we got 2 black SUVs inbound. No plates, no markings. Headed this way fast from the West Ridge." Reyes turned his head toward the wind. Jason Statham cracked his neck. The hum was closer now. Military tires on gravel. The same kind of pattern you'd hear on tactical vehicles running off-grid. Buckley looked back at his officers. "Form a secondary line. Get the spike strips ready." But before they could even move, the 2 SUVs came barreling over the hill, kicking up a tornado of dust. They didn't stop at the cruisers. They swerved straight into the outer roadblock, knocking one vehicle sideways. Doors flew open. Men in black stepped out, fully geared. Not cops, not feds, not even standard spec ops. Their gear was slick, modified, custom. They weren't looking to de-escalate. Jason Statham took one step forward and said nothing, but Reyes raised both hands. "Sheriff, you want to prove you're still in charge? You'd better pick a side, because these guys aren't here to ask questions." The lead blacksuit stepped forward. He was bald, with a radio in one ear and an unusual scar running from the jaw up to the temple. "We'll take it from here," he said coldly. "This is now a matter of federal extraction." Buckley tilted his head. "Federal who? You didn't clear this through dispatch. I didn't see a federal badge." The man smirked and pulled out a laminated card. No emblem, just a barcode. He didn't even flash it for more than a second. Jason Statham gave Reyes a look. "They sent him," he muttered. Reyes didn't answer. The man in black stepped past the deputies, brushing shoulders with one of them. He marched up to Reyes, then turned suddenly, slugging him across the jaw. Reyes staggered back, but didn't fall. He looked up, blood at his lip, and calmly asked, "You sure you want to start this in front of witnesses?" The man in black didn't respond. Instead, 2 others stepped up behind him, tasers in hand. That's when Jason Statham moved. He didn't run. He didn't shout. He just stepped, one arm raised, catching the taser wire in midair. A twist, a pivot, the device flew from the agent's hand. Reyes swept low, knocked the second agent's leg out, and dropped him face first into the dirt. The lead agent backed up, reaching under his coat. But Sheriff Buckley stepped forward now, shotgun in hand, aimed low. "Holster that. Now," he said. The agent hesitated, but saw the circle of cops behind him had guns trained too. The numbers had shifted. So had the trust. Jason Statham didn't gloat. He just turned and said, "You got 2 minutes before someone higher than him sends in a drone. What you do next determines how many people make it out of this without disappearing." The lead agent gritted his teeth and backed up. "You've made a mistake." Jason Statham walked past him toward the truck again. "No, you made a mistake pulling us out before the drop." Reyes added, "And now you just exposed the hand. Congratulations." They opened the back of the truck slowly. Inside wasn't a payload of weapons or drugs. It was an armored vault, blinking red with a heartbeat sensor. One man inside, barely breathing, a sealed ID band on his arm. Government tattoo, eyes closed. Wynn radioed in again from the edge. "Sheriff, we just got a DHS override ping. That's not a transport truck. That's a secure evac unit. Last one used in the Yemen blackout op." Jason Statham turned slightly. "Sheriff, you want your men out of this? We'll disappear now. But if you delay us again, the man in that vault dies, and they'll pin it on you." Reyes added calmly, "Or you walk away. Forget you saw us. Let the right people fix the mess." The hum returned. Another vehicle was coming, but this one wasn't from the hill. It was coming from behind the diner. Jason Statham's eyes narrowed. "That's not our ride," Reyes grunted. "Then we've got a problem." The engine of the old vehicle purred low as it came to a stop at the edge of the scene. It wasn't marked. No insignia, no emergency lights. Just an unassuming, sun-bleached SUV with mud-caked tires and a muffler that coughed twice before dying. Jason Statham's eyes didn't leave it. Neither did Reyes. There was something about that arrival, too late for the ambush, too quiet for backup, and too confident for a civilian. One door creaked open. A leg stepped out, heavy boot, dark jeans, and a gait that told everyone this wasn't someone uncertain. The man who emerged was black, mid-50s, salt and pepper beard, lean frame but hard-edged like he was carved from conflict. He didn't blink at the standoff ahead of him. He just closed the door and started walking. One step, then another. Slow, deliberate, Jason Statham shifted his weight. Not aggressively, more like a readiness unspoken. The seal behind him, Reyes muttered under his breath. "That's Major Barron." Even before the name landed, Sheriff Buckley lowered his shotgun. The agent stiffened. Whatever power they thought they held, it just dissolved. Major Barron stopped 10 feet from the chaos. His gaze drifted across the scene like he was reading a battlefield report. One unconscious agent on the ground, Ray's with blood on his lip. Jason Statham, calm but coiled like a spring. The med vault still running inside the truck. "Whose mess is this?" Barron said, voice gravel dry. The agents didn't answer, neither did the deputies. But Jason Statham. He stepped forward and nodded once, respectful but firm. They escalated first. Barron's eyes didn't shift. Not yet. He let silence settle like fog, made everyone feel the weight of their own presence. Then, finally, he spoke again. "That man in the vault's classified Tier 9 evac. You all know what that means." A few of the younger deputies shook their heads. Most of the agents didn't dare move. "It means if his vitals drop, a Senate committee starts asking why. And none of your names are on the clearance list," Barron continued. "But his are." He pointed at Ray's. "And his," he added, now looking at Jason Statham. That was the second time today the balance of power flipped, but no one moved, until the agent with the scar stepped forward defiant. "We were following orders." "No," Barron said, unmoved. "You were following ambition." That was the end of that man's voice. Barron finally approached Jason Statham directly. For a long time they said nothing. Then the major glanced toward the med vault again. "Condition," Jason Statham responded, never looking away. "Stable but windows closing. We need extraction now." Barron gave a subtle nod, pulled a satellite phone from his belt and walked back toward his SUV without another word. His call would override local channels. This wasn't a rescue anymore. This was a recovery. Suddenly, there was shouting. From the far side of the perimeter, a single state patrol unit came screeching to a stop. Doors flung open. 2 officers stepped out, both in full tactical gear. They hadn't been briefed. They only saw a highway, flashing lights and weapons drawn. Misreading everything, one of them raised his rifle toward Ray's. A gun clicked. It wasn't Ray's. It wasn't an agent. It wasn't even Jason Statham. It was Sheriff Buckley. He stepped between them, shotgun pointed downward but firm. "Lower it," he said to the young trooper. "Now." The kid hesitated, eyes wide. Jason Statham stepped into frame beside Buckley, palms relaxed at his sides. "No one hears the enemy," he said, not just to the trooper but to everyone watching. The moment diffused. Slowly, the rifle was lowered. The patrolman backed off, confused but compliant. Ray's walked to the edge of the scene and slumped against the hood of the black truck, breathing hard. Jason Statham followed. For the first time, their adrenaline dropped just enough to register how long the day had been. "We weren't supposed to get eyes," Ray's muttered. Jason Statham didn't respond right away. His gaze lingered on the tree line beyond the diner, on the fields, on the silence behind them all. "They were counting on us failing before anyone noticed, and we didn't." "No," Jason said. "We didn't." Barron returned moments later. "Chopper in 7. We need a field clearing quarter-mile west." Jason Statham nodded and turned toward Buckley. "We'll need to move the truck." "Done," Buckley said, signaling his deputies. As the group mobilized, the tension didn't vanish. It just reshaped. Some of the agents remained. Some backed off. Most didn't know whether they were still in charge or being replaced. Ray's climbed into the truck to check on the med vault's integrity. Jason Statham stood nearby, watching the perimeter, scanning movement, calculating the next 6 steps in every direction. And then a sound, one that didn't belong. It was faint. A clicking, metallic, followed by a low hum. Jason Statham spun, eyes narrowing. Behind the police line, tucked into the undercarriage of one of the black subs, a green diode blinked twice, then flashed red. "Move," Jason barked. The explosion ripped through the east shoulder. Fire and metal erupted into the air, sending 2 officers tumbling backward. The SUV flipped once, landed on its side and burst into flames. Screams cut the silence. Ray's shielded the med vault with his body. Jason Statham didn't duck. He ran toward it. A second blink. A second vehicle, but this one was different. The charge hadn't gone off yet. Jason slid under the SUV like a mechanic, face barely lit by the pulsing red glow of a remote detonator. His hand reached up, careful, and in one motion he yanked the wiring free and crushed the unit in his palm. The glow vanished, gasps from all sides. He rolled out, covered in dirt and soot. A thin cut down his cheek, his shirt singed at the edge, but he was standing, breathing, focused. Barron and Buckley reached his side at the same time. This was never about the evac, Jason said coldly. No, Baron agreed. It was about who was watching him leave. They turned toward Reyes, who was climbing down from the truck. How long do we have? Jason checked his watch. 4 minutes. Field's ready, Buckley added, but you're not gonna like what's on the ridge. They all looked west. Through the thinning fog, a convoy approached, civilian subs, dusty windows, antennas on every roof moving in formation. But it wasn't military, it was something else, private. Unauthorized, watching, and waiting. Jason Statham didn't flinch. He stepped forward, shirt torn, blood drying on his face. Reyes walked beside him, the two of them framed against smoke, fire, and the shape of an evac helicopter just beginning to circle in. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and fully aware of it, but they didn't stop walking. Not toward the truck, not toward the evac point, not toward the danger, because behind them, inside that med vault, was a man whose knowledge was too dangerous to disappear, and ahead of them was a mystery no one had solved yet. The sky had gone darker, not from the setting sun, but from smoke. It twisted above the charred SUV like a warning flag, while silence settled over the scene like ash. And through it, Jason Statham stood unmoving, the scorched cut across his cheek steaming faintly from the heat. Behind him, the SEAL named Reyes took a slow breath, cracked neck, and tightened his grip on the black duffel bag they had pulled from the evac truck. But no one spoke yet. Not Buckley, not Baron, because something bigger had arrived. Down past the broken tree line and the burned-out vehicles, the ridge began to shift. A convoy, not police, not feds, slowly rolled forward through the smoke. Unmarked SUVs, sand-dusted matte gray, each of them identical, no sirens, no plates, and no hesitation. Inside the lead vehicle, the silhouette of a man in a tan tactical suit barely moved, but Jason Statham already knew who they had sent. Not a negotiator, not a cleanup team. This was an eraser unit, silent, funded in cash, and too early for the cleanup crew to have arrived naturally. This was staged. Someone had made a call before the chopper ever left the base. Jason didn't blink. He stepped forward without waiting. Gravel crunched beneath his boots. Major Baron grabbed his arm hard, low to the side. "You sure?" Jason didn't answer. He just nodded once and kept walking. Reyes followed, zipping the duffel and slinging it over his shoulder like it was made of feathers. Inside, names, movements, offshore fund receipts, encrypted USPs, proof. But the kind of proof that rarely sees the inside of a courtroom. That's why this crew had come. The lead SUV stopped 20 meters away. The man in the tan suit stepped out, tall, white, late 40s, the kind of expensive roughness that came from private training academies and privately buried mistakes. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't have to. Jason had seen him before. Kandahar, 2009. The man had a different name then and a different flag on his shoulder. "You shouldn't be here," the man said quietly. Jason Statham shrugged. "But here I am." A second SUV door opened behind them. A woman stepped out this time, dark blazer, comms earpiece, tablet in hand. She glanced at Jason, paused on Reyes, and then nodded once. No names, just a silent transfer of control. "You don't know what's in that bag," she said. "I know enough," Jason replied. "Enough to get 2 of your contractors fired before breakfast, or buried." The woman didn't flinch, but her fingers twitched once near her comms wire. That's all Jason needed. "You're not here for recovery," he added. "You're here to make it vanish, that truck, him, me. And yet," she said calmly, "you're still standing here." Jason's eyes narrowed. "That your way of saying you're waiting on orders." From behind him, Reyes stepped beside Jason now, duffel still slung, chin lifted. "Orders already came in," he said, "but someone didn't follow them. That's why they're stalling." The man in the tan suit moved closer. "You've got 5 seconds to give us that bag." Jason didn't blink. "Or what?" At that moment the buzzing sound returned, drone overhead. But this time it wasn't theirs. It wasn't government issue. Reyes tensed. Jason didn't look up. "Your toy's late." The man glanced skyward, then reached toward his belt, and that was enough. Jason moved first, a short burst forward. He didn't punch. He didn't need to. He grabbed the man's wrist and twisted until bones popped. The tan suit collapsed to one knee, groaning silently but not screaming. He was trained for silence. Jason shoved him aside. Reyes took 2 long strides and flung the duffel onto the hood of the second SUV. "If anyone else wants to play games," he growled, "now's the time." The woman didn't move, but from behind her a third figure emerged. From the third SUV. "Old man," Thin, civilian suit, balding, black gloves, cane. But Jason knew the type instantly. He wasn't the driver. He was the financier, the kind of man who signs checks that make missiles disappear. The cane was for show. The real weight he carried wasn't in his legs. It was in the rooms he had authority to enter without ID. He didn't raise his voice. "I've seen men like you," he said to Jason. "Honorable, righteous." Confused, Jason didn't respond. "I know what you're trying to do," the man continued. "Expose the old projects, leak the ops, name the dead, but you're wasting time. The system doesn't bleed, it replaces." Jason stepped forward again. "I'm not here to make it bleed," he said. "I'm here to make it notice." The man's mouth curled, almost amused. "And what if I offer you a contract?" Jason glanced at Ray's. "We're not for sale. Everyone is, eventually." "No," Jason said, "just the weak." And with that he stepped back toward Ray's, toward the black evac truck. The man in the suit didn't stop him, but he didn't walk away either. As Jason and Ray's reached the truck again, Sheriff Buckley was waiting. His shotgun rested low at his side, but his face had gone white. "You two planning on driving out of here?" he asked. "We'll make it," Jason said. Buckley looked back at the convoy. "They're not moving." "That's the point," Jason said. "Because they want us to move first. They want it to look like a chase." Ray's opened the truck's side door and threw the duffel in. "Then give them a chase." Jason climbed into the driver's seat. Ray's closed the door behind him. From the ridge, the first SUV started rolling slowly forward. Buckley shouted, "Jason!" Jason looked back once. "Tell your people to stay down." He revved the engine hard, then launched the truck in reverse, dust spraying outward in a fan. The back tires caught traction. The truck skidded, twisted, then found alignment and surged forward toward the opposite end of the ridge. The convoy moved, but they didn't follow immediately. They waited. Because now they weren't just watching two fugitives, they were watching two assets carrying state secrets. Inside the cab, Ray's flicked open a hidden panel. Inside was a second GPS unit. Red blinking dots filled the screen. "What's that?" Jason asked. Ray's looked up. "Locations. From the duffel. Safe houses, dead drops, burial zones, all tagged." Jason's hands tightened on the wheel. "And one of them," Ray's said, "was updated 4 hours ago." Jason turned sharply. "What?" Ray's nodded. "They thought we wouldn't check, but someone updated the coordinates, which means someone inside is still active." Jason didn't speak. His foot pressed harder on the gas. Ray's leaned in. "You think we're running?" he asked. Jason looked out across the road ahead, dust flying behind them, black SUVs now just tiny dots in the distance. "No," he said. "We're circling back." Far away, inside a dimly lit control room, a figure in military uniform watches a silent drone feed of the chase. Only the back of his head is visible. But on the screen, Jason's truck, moving fast, still carrying the duffel. Another screen flashes. A voice crackles through a secure line. "They didn't destroy the evidence." The man turned slightly. On his wrist, a scar shaped like a lightning bolt. "They will," he says quietly. Behind him, red lights flicker on a second feed, surveillance images of Jason's face from years ago. Same posture, same scar, but in a different country. A different name.